we're doing this. So I'm a little unprepared. I didn't quite know I was going to be saying anything today. So I'm here to talk about Oh Heck Yeah. We're about to play some video games. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about them for the project called Oh Heck Yeah. So a quick little background. I live here in Denver. I'm a partner at a company called ModeSet, where we've traditionally been a Rails dev shop, mostly working for early stage tech startups around town. But I have my own little wing of the business where we do creative coding type projects. So I'm also our resident front-end developer. I do web stuff, native apps, anything that has a graphical interface. I touch. So I started building video games in 2000 with Lingo inside of Director, which if you're in your 20s, you've probably never heard of. It is a pretty defunct technology, but it's what made me love programming. I didn't know that I loved it before I started making games. So it's cool to hear Rachel talk and Joanne talk about WebGL and all of these things that are very relevant to my interests. So a couple screenshots. These are still vaguely playable if you can get the Shockwave player to install on a browser. They're still on the web 16 years later. I built those games during an internship with a company in town called Clever Media. They're still around. The owner used to write the 1,000-page books on Director, and he's who sort of taught me how to program. I then moved into the advertising world where I got to make some more games. I've released 26 games across multiple platforms since 2000. We used to make the video games for Adam Sandler's movie websites. At my previous job, we also worked for Audi. We built one of the first free driving games in the iTunes App Store. So moved from Lingo to Flash. I didn't mind ActionScript. On to Objective-C. I started making video games in WebGL. In the last few years, we're losing our internet connection up here, so we won't look at that. But ultimately, in the last few years, well, about 7 years ago, I started playing with the Kinect. Just for fun. It's sort of an interesting thing to try to wrangle. You have all this depth data coming out of a camera. There's one on the stage here, which we're going to use. And a few years after playing with that, I had been doing a lot of stuff with processing, creative coding things, making GIFs, making interactive experiments, making art with code. And a friend of mine, Brian Corrigan, had this idea. He was working for the city of Denver on a program called Create Denver, which was an initiative, a city initiative to sort of expose people to all of the great talent in town and get people excited about creativity and what's possible in the public space. So he said, hey, would you want to make a video game for the biggest screen in Denver with the Kinect? And I said yes. There was almost no budget for it, but I really wanted to do it to get on the screen. So in 2012, I spent about a month every night and weekend in my free time. There was a tiny budget, so I got paid for probably a couple days of my month-long of work. But culminated in this two-player sort of familiar-looking game that combines some other aspects of vintage games that you've probably seen before. But the novel experience being partly that it's on this enormous screen, but also that you're controlling the game with your body. The Kinect had been out, but I think it hasn't been as successful as Microsoft had hoped. But people have written open source drivers. You can play with the Kinect on multiple platforms. Really fun. So the bad thing being that night it was horrendous rainstorms, so not many people actually showed up, but people were walking by, getting off the light rail, just kind of cruising around downtown, going where they're going, but would stop and start playing with each other. So that led to this idea that, all right, we could use gaming as a way to bring strangers together on the street, build community, build the economy, help out local businesses by keeping people around this area of downtown that was sort of not a place you would really want to hang out. There just wasn't much going on there. So that culminated in a proposal for a public art grant through Art Place America. We received $200,000 to build a street arcade. And that's what we did. I spent about a month and a half building 3 new games with the same kind of techniques. And 2 years ago, almost to the day, we launched downtown Denver on 3 consecutive street corners, 2 nights a week for 16 nights of gameplay. We shut down the streets. We had people show up. These games were built for anybody to play. They were super simple, casual games. We wanted little kids or very old people to be able to play together, just walk up and have some fun and meet each other, shake hands. And throughout the summer, we had about 30 to 40,000 people play games downtown. And that's sort of the Oh Heck Yeah project. And it has since been a bit of a traveling roadshow. We've rented it out to for corporate purposes, to HR departments, for wellness programs. It was just down in Santa Fe at Meow Wolf as just part of a public space art programming. So when we think about the why of making video games, for me it's really fun, but extending off the screen and out of your basement and out of the headset, wherever sort of commercial gaming is at, there are all these great things that maybe gaming can do for us, like bring us together, help you meet new people, share ideas, strengthen the local community, and that's what we're trying to do. So I think over the next 20, 25 minutes, something like that, we're going to be playing some games. So I'm going to move my computer down onto the stage, and I will shamefully say that these were built with Java, sans the script. I do write a lot of JavaScript, so I'm one of you guys. But yeah, so mostly using processing. It's an open source project, just a little bit more about the project itself. All of the code that we wrote over the time that we built it is open source. We worked with the Colorado Symphony, who wrote our soundtrack, which is a really amazing experience. So all of the pieces of the soundtrack are also open source on GitHub. If you look up Oh Heck Yeah on GitHub, you can find all of our sweet Java code and all of our soundtrack WAV files and all of our SVG and otherwise graphical assets. So you can take these games, run them yourself. There's some decent instructions up there. Or remix them, learn from them, learn how to wrangle the Connect, and maybe build some community. So that's that. And I think join me here in a second. We'll take a break, and if the way these games are going to work, we're going to play 2 games today. We're going to have a few different sessions in between the breaks. We have 2 lines taped down on the floor. Each of these games are 2-player competitive games, and all you have to do to play the games is stand on the line and move your body back and forth, and we'll see who's awesome at gaming, which I'm not, but they're fun to make. So thanks a lot.